Welcome at the Table ministry from Front Street United Methodist Church in Burlington, where I, Ray Warren, and my pal here, what is your name again?
Josh Abraham.
Yeah. So glad to have you, and thank you for joining us. We're on this year-long series and thought, Josh, of why. Why believe, why Jesus, why change, why church, any kind of why you can think of. And today, well, you tell us where we are, Josh.
We are in one of my absolute favorite places to be. We are in Duke Divinity School.
It's not a theater.
It is not a theater. This is where we took classes to learn more about Jesus. I took preaching in this very class.
He's a pretty decent preacher, so at least he heard something. So anyway, Josh, why are we here though?
We are here because the question that we are asking this week...
Wrestling with?
Yeah. We are asking, why should we believe in the teachings of Jesus? And I thought, what better place to come to than in one of the institutions that's dedicated to teaching about Jesus, to breaking down those individual things that he taught, whether it be history, theology, biblical languages.
I know there are some Carolina, maybe Duke, NC State fans, other like, Duke actually teaches about Jesus?
It's true.
Yeah, it's one of the main focuses of the university. Duke Divinity School, just the Duke Divinity School library, has more than 400,000 different volumes. All of them about Jesus, related to Jesus, faith, religion, all of those 400,000 volumes. So it means you and I could spend our entire life doing nothing but reading books that are there, and we could never finish. Who do you know who has, or do you know anybody who maybe has struggled with, believing in Jesus? I mean, I know some of those people.
Yeah.
And often, the thing is, things like, I've just kind of gotten off of the God thing because I see so much horrible things happening in the world. I think about Gaza, and I think about Israel, and I think about all that going on in our culture right now. Mm-hmm. If God really is God, how come?
Right.
And I don't want to, if God can't stop that, don't want to do that, doesn't want to end that, then, maybe you guys are barking up the wrong tree.
Right. When I was younger, I dropped out of college because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. The church was always kind of a safe place that I felt like I could kind of come in and out of and still feel myself.
Kind of a sanctuary.
Right. When I went back to school, I decided that I wanted to study religious studies. And so when I started to drill down into the academic study, then I started to feel like, wow, do I even really know this faith that I have? Do I really understand the dogmas and the faiths that I'm espousing? Is that really what I believe? And not only is this what I believe, is this something I would even want to share with somebody? Because like you said, I was confronted with all of these questions, massive questions, like we talked about. Who is this person of Jesus? Who is this God? Where am I in all of this? What about heaven and hell and the suffering that we all experience? And it truly drove me into states of panic, where I could not wrap my head around it, and I had very regular panic attacks about it. And it wasn't until that I had to be comfortable knowing that I am not going to know everything, but I am going to be able to do what I can.
So I'm thinking, Josh, get a little personal here. You in your own life, talking about that life struggle and having almost anxiety attacks about being overwhelmed with these questions. And then I think it was probably about the same time your dad became ill. Mm-hmm. And you had to struggle with that.
Yeah, he had been ill since I was in middle school, but right when I started to go back to school, actually when I started Divinity School, he was put on hospice care.
When you started?
When I started Divinity School, and then he passed away.
Well, that's a gut punch.
Yeah, he passed away right in the beginning of my second semester in my first year here. So I had to kind of stop taking classes in the middle and make up all that work during the summer so that I could still graduate in 3 years. Those are the kinds of questions and experiences that make faith go from that intellectual exercise or just that warm feeling that you have in your heart to something that you feel in your entire body, something that unites what you're feeling in here, what you're thinking in here, to what you then have to do and what you have to live out.
So what I hear you saying is, I'm sitting here thinking, why do you think some people struggle? And then you just kind of amplified it. People struggle because they can't get the answers, it seems, or the answers that we think are satisfying or maybe even correct with our head. And what I heard you say a moment ago is, you have to come to some sort of place that no matter who you are, what you are, or how brilliant you are never going to have all the answers. And that's really true in any discipline, isn't it? That you're never going to get all the answers. And if you're looking for all the right answers, it'll drive you crazy.
Right. The way that I described it was everything culminated into the shortest verse of the Bible, Jesus wept.
Oh my gosh, tell me more about that.
And you have Jesus at the mouth of Lazarus's grave, full knowledge that Lazarus can be raised from the dead, yet still feeling the pain of earthly loss and still feeling the sting of Mary and Martha saying, if you had been here, you would have saved him. And that overwhelmingness that comes out of your entire self when you experience those emotions and you experience that desperate need to have that kind of answer and to have that kind of sure footing. It's something that you can never forget, and something that like is one of the most beautiful experiences somebody could ever go through, but also something that is the most soul shattering at the same time.
So what would you say to those people who maybe have walked down your shoes of grief, of despair, of disappointment or disillusionment, of why I believe, and they begin to list off, I lost my baby at 9 months old. I lost a 12-year-old son. I lost a spouse. I lost a mom or a dad. Or I didn't get the job that I know that I worked hard for. Or I flunked out of school. Or I'm an addict. Why did God make me an addict? Or my husband left me. My wife left me. There's an endless number of things that are just devastating in our lives.
Yeah.
And what would you say to someone who has just decided, thanks but no thanks. They don't have any interest in Jesus any longer.
Well, two things come to mind. One is that desperate cry of humanity to make sense in the face of what feels like absolute chaos in this chaotic life. And something surely has to be out there, something beyond just the way that I feel in my body, in my brain, that's firing electricity all throughout my body. Something else has to be there. Something else has to be there that I can find comfort in and with, and something that's beyond me. And I'm reminded that in all of the talks about deconstruction and younger people leaving the faith, it's interesting to note that I looked at a study that said of all of the young people that are leaving the church, very few of them are actually leaving faith and leaving kind of that spiritual understanding of faith. They still want that understanding. So they might not see the church as providing that answer right now, but they're still hungering for it. They still want to know, is there a message that I can go to? Is it found in the church? Maybe, I don't know. I've experienced a lot of hurt in the church, maybe. But there's still that yearning and that fire inside of them that says, I wish I had that answer.
I guess, too, when you said, people have been hurt by the church, the thing I would say, and maybe that's the reason they've kind of dismissed Jesus or dismissed God or dismissed the church, is I would remind them that God never hurts. Jesus never hurt. But we humans do. And because the church is full of humans like you and me, I think often, sometimes intentionally, I hope not much, but certainly unintentionally, we hurt one another. And the church has, in the past, intentionally hurt others. I know someone who, back in the 60s, a predominantly white, well, all white church, and an African American family came in. And their deacons ushered them out of the church, causing some high school and college kids who were in that service never to return to church again. And you know, when I hear that, I think, can you blame them?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's church, no thanks.
Yeah.
But in the vernacular, and I pardon my French, but that's the bastardization of the gospel. That church, I think, and those leaders are going to be held responsible
Yeah.
for lives.
And it's all the more important reason then for us who don't want to be those agents of hurt in the world, for us to absorb every teaching that we can, to have those things like the Old Testament says, written on our hearts, written on our hands, written on our foreheads, so that they're the first things out of our mouths. They're the only thing that people hear. And that hope that every step of our journey on this plane is one that we are more loving, we're more tender, we're more caring, we're more generous than we were the day before. I love in Philippians and the Apostle Paul talking about how that striving and that yearning to be more like Christ is the ultimate goal for his life, and how he considers everything else that he's done up until that point just trash. And that he can finally pursue this, because when you pursue it, when you really dive down into it, you see that there are these life-altering, universe-flipping upside-down kind of answers that we can take to people, and that we can really see can change lives and upend empires and really make this place heaven on earth. That's what the teachings of Jesus should be about. And that should be something where people can find refuge in, not feel a sting of a whip as it's used against them.
Right. That example that I gave, those people who ushered that African American family out, they actually believed they were doing the right thing. I knew at least one of those persons that did the ushering, who, he's deceased now, but if you'd bumped into him, talked to him, you thought, well, he's a wonderful man. But it shows to me how culture and blame influences the church. And sometimes culture and misunderstanding and all that will derail good so oftentimes, if we're not studying and growing, as you said, and maybe reading those 400,000 books that are in the Divinity School library. So my gut is we have folks out there who are still saying, you know, Josh and Ray, appreciate it, but I'm still not convinced. And I probably would say, you know, if you're intrigued by this person of Jesus, if you're intrigued by Jesus' message and what Jesus stood for, at least in the best sense of the term that we know of, start doing the work. Start reading some of those 400,000 books, and just give it a good shot.
Yeah.
Not a fake, a real shot. Read the Gospels, if nothing else. And if he is who those reflect that he was,
Yeah.
I think most people will say, I need to turn another leaf and think about this some more. And so, Josh, thank you for that. We thank you for joining us at the table. And if you're around the Burlington, North Carolina area, you're always invited to be part of us. And you also stream online. You could come in person in Burlington to Front Street. Everyone is always welcome. If you're someplace else, we thank you for joining us at the table. We'll see you next week.
Take care.